So here we are,
just like that,
with the current European Lady Amateur Champion. This little simple setup thing already did a lot to her whole swing.
It was an easy fix, and honestly, like, it was so much easier to rotate.
Boys and girls, Marty Borgi found someone special. You might remember Sonja. We played a few matches together in Berlin, but after I saw her play, I was like, this girl seriously has some potential, and I'm being serious, to become a very, very good long driver. And then I kind of convinced her to play her first tournament ever at the European Championships. And guess what? She hit a 45-inch driver, hit it 301 yards, and became the European champion. Here we are,
Just like that,
with the current European Lady Amateur Champion. So now what we did is we signed her up for Worlds. So she's gonna be in Atlanta in just a couple weeks
it's crazy.
at our first World Championship after just being in the sport for like
A week and a half.
a week and a half.
Yeah.
So what we got to do now is we got to transform her already very powerful golf swing into an actual long drive swing. So the idea is to get rid of all the bits that you did that are control based and add everything power based. That's really
Right,
what it's
sounds
about.
great.
So what was your, just a real quick baseline, when you swung your 45-inch club just like normal out on course, or when you were practicing not going for speed, how fast did you go back in the days? Like
Back in the day, probably like 104.
104.
105 was probably the fastest when I'm playing in a tournament, because I have a lot of adrenaline, but yeah, that's probably maxed out. I mean, the fastest I ever hit with my 45-inch was 110.
110.
Yeah.
110. So I saw her at 113, 114 2 weeks ago with a 45 when she was pushing it a little bit. So the first bit that we did is we switched her equipment. So first of all, we went to TPT 21 High, which is a super light shaft. It's 40 grams, it's 185 CPM, and you're still hitting the Maverick driver with the weights out. So I'm still working on getting her a paradigm. But then also what we got to do is we still got to switch grips because this one is a little too thick for her.
That's what she said.
But with this one spec'd out at 48, she already adds a little bit more speed to her drive. So what do you think? How much does the shaft do? The additional length?
A lot.
How much?
Well, I think I hit it like 6 miles faster.
So that's 3 inches. So you could say like that's 2 miles per inch. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Math. Let's get right into it and
right.
see how we actually transformed her golf swing into a proper long drive swing. Let's pop up her swing before her golf swing up on screen right here. So what you see is, you see that in her backswing, she's actually not rotating her hips as much as you would think. In the downswing, however, when she's going through the golf ball, it's insane how much she's actually rotating her hips. I would say at impact, her hips are like 60 degrees open. It's ridiculous. So now the idea is to add a little bit of hip rotation in the backswing to free up her thorax as well, because when you swing back and let's say your hips are restricted, you can only move your thorax so much. When you add more hip turn, and I didn't even rotate my thorax here, it's automatically going to increase a little bit of thorax turn when the X factor, so the ratio between the hips and the thorax, remains the same. So what we want to do is we want to add a little bit of hip rotation. And the first bit that we did, because this is the actual reason she couldn't rotate more, because she didn't really have to, because she was freaking fast anyway, so it didn't really.
fast already.
Yeah, you were fast already, so it didn't really make a difference. But the first bit that we did is actually a setup question. We went from a foot flare, from a crazy foot flare, to an almost straight foot. So what that does is, and she's a lefty, so I try to do this righty now. When you go like this, when you flare your foot a lot, you're very restricted, or you kind of restricted in the rotation of your hips. So the more open this is, the more you're gonna break your knee and your hip when you try to rotate back. When you move this one over here, you can rotate a lot more without even pushing. So this one, when you flare your foot, sometimes it can make sense, right? For people that lack a little bit of hip rotation through the impact zone, right? Because this way around, it makes it a lot easier to rotate, but it was restricting her backswing. How did that feel for you when you did that?
It was an easy fix, and honestly, like, it was so much easier to rotate. Like, it enabled me basically to also move or push my knee more to the inside and just like go crazy and almost get that 60-degree rotation in the backswing.
Yeah.
Just like that. I didn't even have to try hard. It was just like an instant free up of my movement back there.
Yeah, interesting. And also what she did as well is now she's lifting that lead heel off the ground when she's swinging back. When you flare your foot like crazy, it's really tough to actually lift it up and rotate at the same time. So with that new foot position, it gives her even more room to rotate back, plus also by lifting up that heel, it's gonna pronounce that upload move even more. So she's going up more to then drop down and push up again. But this little simple setup thing already did a lot to her whole swing, because what you see as well is when you swing back, go swing back again and stop at the top of your backswing. So her hands, when she's swinging back dynamically, are almost behind her head. Before, her hands were over, don't fall over. Before, her hands were over here, so it lengthened her hand path by around 20 centimeters already by just changing the setup, which is insane. Why don't you just hit one? Just hit one. Just show the guys out there how it looks like.
Okay, with
Because
better
it's
rotation.
No, do it like the way, like the proper way, the way it did it.
All right, let's go.
Rotate. That's sick.
Just like that.
That's actually insane. That's 113, and we were talking for like 30 minutes. She didn't hit a ball in an hour. But now, as we changed a little bit of that hip rotation in the backswing, there was another element in the upper thorax that we improved for long drive, and that's about your right shoulder, about the lead shoulder through the impact zone. Talk them through what you did there.
So before, I was not really opening up my shoulder. It was kind of stuck here where my hips were kind of flying to the target, and I was losing a little bit of speed here and consistency. So what I did now is I'm trying to like push off the ground and push that lead shoulder to the back, like high and back. And that allowed me to get a better launch angle and just hit the ball even further, because I could like fire up my hips and my shoulders at the same time, so I can create more speed for the ball.
I talked to Lee Cox about this, and what's interesting is he's probably given like, I don't know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of lessons in his life. And in general, you could say guys usually have a very strong upper body compared to the lower body, and for women it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So they usually have stronger legs in comparison to their upper body, and that's why sometimes when your hips are super fast, your thorax or your upper body is lacking behind, and that's actually then the weakest link and is not allowing you to swing faster. So by doing that, by actually getting the thorax to the same level as your footwork, the more speed we can create. So number one, what we did is we changed the hip rotation by changing the setup. How did you feel when you did that? Did you just like change it and it immediately happened just automatically, or what was your internal focus when you were rotating?
Well, so for one, it was definitely easier, but my focus was basically to push like this, my trail, pelvis, my trail.
The hip joint?
Back to the target basically. And not just here, but also my trail shoulder. And that kind of, with that better setup, it allowed me to do that and actually really load and then fire back up. So yeah, it was pretty easy. I've never done it before. And it was so nice to be like, oh yeah, I can actually fully rotate now.
That was so funny because I heard Lee say that, and we were working on it together, and she did like 3 swings, and she just did it. Right? It's not like we needed a few drills for that or whatever. She just did it because it's such a simple fix, right? It's not really anything substantial.
Yeah.
It's very substantial, but it's not tough
And
to
I
do.
guess you guys are the best in the world, so.
Potentially. every now and then. Lee in coaching for sure, 100%. So then the thorax, when you were like just trying to like rotate up and back throughout the impact zone, what did you do or what did you rehearse before you hit the golf ball? Was there anything special to prime your body to get it done, or did you just do it as well?
I would say a mix of both, but I was trying to visualize and feel how this lead shoulder is actually going back and up.
Yeah.
So just from the top, I was rehearsing a lot like, okay, what do I do once I push off this leg and straighten it up? My shoulder also has to move up and back. So I was doing a lot of rehearsals of that, just starting out with some slower shots. Actually, I started with irons today, just to get better compression, and then worked my way up also with speed. And yeah, I think I did pretty well today. So
I think so as well. 118 today.
Yeah.
118, and it's day 3. Because this is something that you got to learn as well, because right now we're prepping for Worlds. I'm practicing 4 days on, 2 days off, and she's kind of following that pattern. And what you got to see is the CNS, so the central nervous system, the more you practice, is being torn down. So it would not make sense to be the fastest on day 4 or day 3, right?
Yeah.
Usually most people would be their fastest on day 1. As we are hitting over 3-4 days, right? You're hitting 3, I'm hitting 4 days. It wouldn't make sense to be the fastest on day 1, right?
Yeah.
We want to be the fastest in the final.
Yes,
so
of course.
That's why we practice this way, in this pattern, that we prime our bodies to be the fastest on day 4. And now what she's seen is today she was faster than yesterday, than day 2.
Yeah.
Probably because today your mechanics were better.
Yeah.
But you were more tired, right? She was more fatigued. Her CNS was not firing as hard as yesterday or the day before. But what she's learning right now is kind of the balance between the CNS and the mechanics, and how powerful both is.
All right, taking it to the top, just pressing my foot in here and trying to get the shoulder up and back just with my hips. So really rehearsing that.
That's interesting because it's almost like a loading back, going forward, going back again.
Yes,
so there's
exactly.
a lot of motion going on,
Yes.
right? I'm always talking about all the power buttons or the volume dials in golf or in the golf mechanics. Some people need to utilize a lot of them in golf because they're not as strong or whatever it might be. She didn't need a lot of them to actually be fast, and now we're turning them up, right? Step by step, we're trying to get faster and faster. Now show them. Let's go. I didn't see it was so far. Still
It
up
was
there?
that straight. It was, still up there.
All right, 289 yards. I take it like Carrie. I take it. Okay, that's pretty sick, especially because she's actually dead cold. We were freezing her for like 30 minutes here. But now what I've been talking with you about, it's kind of in the middle between equipment, CNS, and mechanics, which is pretty much specific to long drive.
Yeah.
Because what I'm talking about now does not necessarily make sense for irons or wedges. And that is about how because now you're so dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And now what you do is you want to load the shaft, and especially with these soft shafts, you actually feel it and see it way quicker than with the stiff ones.
Yeah.
So we load the shaft, and then up here at the top, we try to be as patient as possible to let the shaft come back.
Okay.
And then load it hard up here in the first segment of the downswing, which is a position that some golf coaches call like P4 1/4 or whatever, P4 being the top of the backswing, and then eventually P5.
When you get to P5, yeah.
P5 being arm parallel,
Okay.
so P4 1/4 would be the first segment between that, right? So early downswing, very early downswing, to really, boom, initiate the shaft load up there to whip the shaft through the ball.
Okay.
Because this shaft is so soft, and with that thing you can really feel what it does when you whip it like that. With an iron, that does not necessarily make sense because
Yeah.
what do you want to do with an iron out on course when you play golf? You want to hit it the same distance all the time, as accurate as possible.
Yeah.
So now when you try to whip it, then sometimes you whip it more, sometimes you whip it less, sometimes you hit it like 10 yards over the green, sometimes you 10 short. Does not make sense, right?
Yeah.
But for long drive, when you try to like unload it perfectly every time with such a soft shaft to add as much speed and distance as possible, it does absolutely make sense. And I think for you, tempo-wise, let's just call the whole topic tempo.
Okay.
That would be a next step for you to combine it with all the rest to get even more speed out of it. And a cool drill for this principle you can actually do with a stack. The idea about it is you really pause at the top of the backswing, just like Hideki, right? You know Hideki,
Yes.
he does it in a
Yeah.
very exaggerated way, very unique, but doing that and actually stopping up here, lifting that left heel off the ground, stopping up here, and then try to initiate that downswing as hard as you can,
Kind of
really
like a
focusing on that.
whipping motion?
Exactly, with a whipping motion, really
Okay.
focusing on that can add a lot more focus to the principle of that,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Totally.
the idea is really dynamic, load up, stop, and then
Whip it.
initiate.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
So do that a few times before you actually swing. And I mean, you don't have any experience
No, this
with
is the first time I'm
like speed sticks at all because you've never really done speed training because you didn't have to. Yeah.
I didn't have to.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's like, now you have to.
So stop.
Stop and then initiate. Exactly right.
That feels different already.
Really light, isn't it? Stop and whip. I like it. Do it again. Nice. And it's
Actually
so
allows me to feel the shaft. So like when I stop and actually in transition, I feel like it's almost bending. Although
Yeah.
this is probably like pretty stiff.
yeah, but it's still bending, and you take the by doing that, you take the dynamics at the top of the backswing of the like bending back and forth out of it.
Yeah.
So you initiate the bending,
Yeah.
which is great, in my opinion. Also to do it when you do it the first time,
Yeah.
right? Because you've never really felt it, you've never really
No.
done it. So I think it's a great principle to do it from the get-go. So now what we do is we take our driver, and
Yeah.
now I have a little special for you here.
Okay.
This is the Martin
Curious.
Borgmeier special. No, we're not
we're not
using
hitting, okay.
the ball. We're not using the ball. So I got a little head cover here for you. And I want you to feel exactly the same thing. So you stop at the top with that driver.
Still doing like a dynamic
You do
takeaway.
exactly the same thing
Stopping.
you just did with a stick.
Yeah.
You stop at the top of the backswing and you whip it as hard as you can and you fire that head cover 500 yards.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
So here you go. Stop at
Never
the top.
done this before. Kind of nervous.
That's what she said. Let's go. I like it.
Almost missed it.
Bang! Did you
That was
feel that?
fun.
Did you feel that though?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when you stop up there?
Yeah.
So stop thinking, go feeling.
Okay. All right. Dynamic. Stop.
Dynamic,
whip it.
stop and whip it. Boom! There you go. Oh, that was a
great.
tight draw down the right side.
This we would love to see.
But do you get it? Like how what I mean about like stopping and then loading the
Yes.
shaft?
Yes.
Because this, especially with these soft shafts, which is a pretty new principle in long drive. I mean, it's just a couple years old before like all the guys hit like 3, 4, 5 X shafts. Now we can really make use of it up here, and then like this initiation is so super important in the swing because in that position a lot of stuff is happening. Your pressure is actually the most forward.
Yeah.
Right, so when you look at the center of pressure, like at that point in the golf swing, everything is way forward. Your mass at the same time is still back.
Is still
with
back.
an iron, it would be forward because you want to
Yeah.
hit the ball and then the ground.
Down.
But with a driver, the pressure is forward, the mass is back, exactly, and then from there you swing up on it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And that also goes in line with your shoulder move,
Yes.
because then you're here, and now you can like pull it back, right? I like it. Come
Just
on,
like that.
let's hit a ball like that.
Okay.
So don't think, just hit it. Hammered. Goodbye. Look,
That's
we
great.
were completely freezing her again, and you were 3 miles an hour faster than before.
Yeah.
It's 114, just like that, not even going for it. Let's check the ball speed real quick. Okay, 164. Here we are. Just like that, girl.
Thank
You excited? Are you excited for Worlds?
I'm so excited. This is awesome. This is so much fun.
It's gonna be
Thank you for all the tips.
This is going to be such a sick experience for you, especially on such a big stage and then
Yes.
being up there with all the girls that
All
you
the
know from
adrenaline
TV.
kicking as well.
Uh-huh.
Better watch out.
One thing you got to do is you got to make sure you enjoy it because it's going to be a heck of a ride.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to follow Zonia on her journey, follow her on all the socials. You're on IG only, are you?
Yeah,
Are you on
IG
YouTube as
only.
well? Coming soon, hopefully. When she's a world champion, she's gotta ramp up that YouTube as well. But follow that girl on IG. It's absolutely amazing how much work she's putting into all of this and how committed she is, especially when she made the decision and she's gonna become a long driver. She did it 100% and I love that. That's
Still
an attitude
feels
I
unreal.
love.
Thank you.
Boys and girls, comment down below how you feel about these tips. Does it make sense? Does it make sense for golf as well? Maybe there's some stuff in it for yourself as well, for your journey. Maybe you want to become a long driver. There's so many diamonds out there that we don't know of yet. There's a lot to come for the game of long drive.
Let's go
Also,
with it.
I love it. Thanks for liking the video. Thanks for being subscribed.